If you've ever thought of the warm buzz of an engine beneath your feet as a distraction you have to deal with, then we have nothing in common. Or that was true, at least, until I found myself here. Next to the i4, people watching and not missing for a second the twitchy metropolis I'd left behind. Nothing pushes innovation quite like competition, which is why we find ourselves at this strange crossroads between combustion cars now and what the striking EVs of the future promise us with such conviction. This week, we drove to Tofino, BC to see how well the subtle nature of the i4 could blend in and keep the distractions at bay. So ever since the i8, BMW has had a promise of an EV future. And here in 2022, this i4 in front of me today is the most practical and best looking EV that they have to offer. Now, of course, that's a little bit subjective, but the real question is it just an afterthought of the 4 Series that's been made into an EV, or is it a real contender in the market that might actually stay in your garage for a few years? Is it the anti-Tesla Model 3? Let's find out. It's been a quiet week. It's based on the 4 Series, of course, and it has been converted, as we skip out of that parking lot a little bit, into an EV. So yes, this is based off the standard gas-powered 4 Series. It is a hatchback, however, so it is a Grand Coupe, using BMW terminology. So the one I'm driving today is the eDrive 40 model. It's a 2022. With the 2023, there is going to be available an eDrive 35, which will be a step below this model, which with slightly less range. And then the top tier model of the i4 is the M50, which unfortunately I'm not driving today. I was really hoping BMW would have the M50 for us here, but that's not the case. The M50 has 536 horsepower. It's got xDrive, and it is fast, 0 to 60 in 3.3 seconds. But this eDrive 40, 335 horsepower, 317 pound-feet of torque. Not all-wheel drive, not xDrive, rear-wheel drive. What we will do is go out of comfort mode. We'll hit sport mode, which, as you can see on the 14.9-inch display here, changes our setting. Let's go. Can you hear that? Those sounds were composed by Hans Zimmer, believe it or not. Fun fact, I don't know if it's even worth mentioning. It's just a futuristic sound. I think they just wanted to use his clout to get people excited about the sounds coming out of an EV, which, if you're looking for sounds, EVs are the last place you should be looking for in your driving experience. Now, this one I'm driving today has not been optioned with the optional adaptive suspension on the eDrive 40. It is standard on the M50. And the suspension tuning here is nice. It's very comfortable, very isolated, very quiet. I've driven about 800 kilometers in this particular i4, and it's been awesome. There's virtually no road noise. Instantaneous torque means you can hit the on-ramp as fast as you want at 2 a.m. Nobody will be the wiser, and it's just a comfortable place to be. So the i4 eDrive 40 here in Canada starts at $55,000 Canadian. This one I'm driving today as tested. Traction control coming on momentarily around that corner is $72,000 Canadian, which is $1,000 less from the $73,000 Canadian starting price of that M50 model. So it has a range of 484 kilometers. Now, when the battery is fully charged, it will give you a higher rated range, but it is rated at 484 kilometers range. The M50 is rated at 434, so slightly less range, of course, due to the extra weight. I was not expecting it to throw down 335 horsepower as seamlessly and as strongly, as powerfully as it actually does. This is plenty. You know, I really thought I was going to miss driving the M50 this week. It's all about how the car feels. It's all about how that torque is delivered. And here, while 0 to 60 is not 3.3 seconds, it is a stout 5.5 seconds to 60 miles an hour. It's easy for the i4 to blend in with the construction, cruise ships, and airports around the city. It's not doing much to curb the smog out there. To figure out where it truly belongs, we drove 329 kilometers to Tofino, BC, minus about 60 kilometers parked on the ferry. Arriving on the coast at 40% battery felt good, but the last thing this coastline made me want to do was sit at a charger for half an hour making small talk and comparing notes with Tesla owners. If I had, the i4 would have gone from 10 to 80% charge in that time. Take into consideration, however, the one and only non-Tesla DC fast charging station within 2 hours of the coast. So instead, the i4 was happy with, let's call it a trickle charge at the campsite outlet. In stark contrast to most other new EVs, the i4 arrived without an entrance. I'm certain no one even noticed we drove onto the dock, and we certainly didn't steal anyone's attention away from the sunset. It's not a shocking display of what the future could look like, nor does it need to be. It's simply a subtle evolution of something already familiar. I love this about the i4. This does, however, end up working against it. Despite a valiant effort for more space via the hatchback, which, yes, transported all of this and 4 people here, when I opened the frunk, I realized it's not a frunk at all. There's no storage there, a sign of this strange crossroads I mentioned in the intro. Despite that, it created more room for the sounds I'd want to hear in a place like this. As much as I would have loved a blistering loud V12 for this drive, I simply can't argue with a silent and free drive out to the coast. So one of my favorite things about the i4 eDrive 40 is it looks like an ordinary BMW. Now that might not actually be what you're after. You might want one of the more futuristic kind of inspired EVs that are running around, but it looks like an ordinary 4 Series, which I can appreciate. I don't need to be running around town screaming, I'm saving the environment, or look at me, I'm driving EV, I'm part of the future. That doesn't need to be the title of the book, so to speak. I can allow for some conversation if it comes about, like on my recent trip to Tofino where I drove this car and they had to ask me whether it was hybrid or gas or full electric, which is nice. And although you could mistake this potentially for a 430i Grand Coupe, this one's about 900 pounds heavier than that car. And if you go with the M50 xDrive, which of course adds an additional motor, you're looking at approximately 1,200 pounds heavier than a 430i. So there's a lot of weight to carry around. And while yes, the center of gravity on this car is about 5 centimeters lower than your standard gasoline powered 3 Series, it still has a lot of weight to chuck around. And that's one thing in the EV car market that is an uphill battle that none of these cars can escape. Let's get back inside. So you do have Eco Pro mode, you have comfort, and you have sport still. Sport, what it does without the adaptive suspension is effectively tightens up the steering a little bit, and then it makes the throttle mapping a little bit punchier. So it's not slow. I really thought I was going to have to recommend the M50. I don't. I think this amount of power is plenty. There's some tire squeal, a little bit of understeer. That's some safety baked into the i4 experience. It's a great driving car, honestly. It doesn't mask the weight completely. No. Does it mask the weight better than I would have thought? Yes. There is quite a bit of pitch and dive though. Oof. Lots of G-forces. The base eDrive 40 does come with only 225s all around. We've got P0s. Yeah, the rear end will wag around a little bit, toss the weight around a little bit. It's fun to push. It's not a car that's really begging you to push it. I'm just kind of like, I don't know, maybe a missed opportunity here because it is only rear-wheel drive. It could be a burnout machine. Maybe BMW will make that in the future, but that's not what this is. I don't know if this kidney grille that we first saw on the G80 M3 and M4, which I haven't driven yet, is growing on me, or that I've just become more tolerant of it. And regardless of which one of those things it is, I don't know which one of those is better. So you guys tell me. I think it's a pretty good looking car. It's a hatchback as well, which helps with space. And then we have a 14.9 inch curved display on this side. I guess the whole thing's kind of curved like a boomerang. When it's off, it looks great. It looks very seamless. But what that has done, unfortunately, is move the climate control, which maybe you already noticed on the GoPro back there, from down here, right here, up into the screen. So there is a climate menu button there. You can hit climate menu. It comes up really quick. The screen's very responsive. I drive 8 here in BMW speak. And of course you have all your fan controls here. Also, when automatic program is on, there are 4 heated seat settings, but when automatic program is off, there are only 3 heated seat settings. Very strange. On a side note too, the heated seats, I don't know what went on here. Maybe it's a battery issue. I need to test this at full battery to give you guys the full story, but at any less, when I've tested it, at any less than 70% battery, the heated seats at full blast are maybe the low setting on any other M car I've driven, the M240i most recently. Lowest setting may be equivalent to that medium setting, and it's on very high. It's just not, it's not very powerful. Now, I don't know if that's just BMW allocating more electricity elsewhere, or the materials here, these nice leather seats. It's a weird gripe. It's a weird thing to get wrong. Heated seats, they've been around for, God, what, 30 years? At least 40 years? But other than the HVAC controls on the screen, which are, you know, I don't like that, but at the same time, the temperature itself is always here. So you can always adjust the temperature on the fly on the touchscreen. You just have to hit climate to bring up the fan speed and a number of other things. Other than that, the interior here, this is all very familiar down here if you've driven any modern BMW in the last few years. So regen braking, what do we have? Well, we don't have paddle shifters here, which a lot of EVs have to instantaneously control and change your regen braking setting from like a low, medium to a high on the fly. BMW doesn't have that. What they do is make you go into the settings to change that. Slightly annoying, but that's that. Another way to drive the BMW i4 is to switch the gear shifter, I guess it's not actually changing any gears, over to the left here into B. So what that does is enable, take my feet off the pedals, full 1-pedal driving. So the car will come to a complete stop without me touching the brakes at all. So what I've been doing is I just have regen braking in the low setting, which still slows the car down a little bit. I actually don't know if the brake lights are on in the low setting. I'm assuming they're not, because it feels just like coasting, and that will do what a normal gasoline powered car would do, is when you come off the brake pedal, it will begin to roll forward. I like that. I like my i4 to feel, in most scenarios, like a normal gasoline powered car as far as how it behaves at low speeds. And then when I really want to get the regen braking, I can just quickly flip it into B, and then it will go into full regen. So it actually turns out to be quite an intuitive system, easy to use, and you can just kind of set your preference and go. But it's fun to drive. I'm actually quite surprised how well BMW has been able to translate their 4 Series experience, which dynamically, yeah, isn't quite as good as, let's say, a 2 Series, into the i4. They have done a great job. All right, we're gonna try and turn traction control off because it is rear wheel drive. And what do? We like to have fun. I don't want the EV future to be as dull as the hype would lead it to believe, which is 0 to 60 times. That's boring. Really? That's the ultimate for EVs? Those are the goalposts? 0 to 60 times? To me, that's just so dull and boring. So I'm hoping manufacturers come up with ways, and they are starting to, of capturing a better audience, a more engaged audience. Now I just want to do donuts. Okay, so i4 in BMW land, it's good value. Not even in BMW land. Starting price, base for base, MSRP here in Canada, the i4 is less expensive and gets more range than the base model Tesla Model 3. So take that into consideration. Thank you guys so much for watching. Please hit me up on Instagram if you want to see what I'm shooting on a day-to-day basis, and kind of leave your comments and questions for future videos. Subscribe if you haven't already. See you guys soon.